5 children die of child abuse each day. In the United States, there are over 5 million reports of children abused called in each day. Unfortunately for the little boy in my book, his abuse went unnoticed for far too long. He was in the 5th grade before his abuse was ever reported. The story opens up with a chapter called The Rescue. It tells about the day David, a 5th grader, is finally free from his abusive mother. All of his teachers, the school nurse, and the administration all knew he was getting abused and neglected, but that day they finally did something about it. They called the police, and David was taken from his brutal home life and abusive mother forever. David was the happiest he had been in a very long time. This book took place in the 1960s in Daly City, near San Francisco. And in the years before David was abused, he had the perfect life with the perfect family. He had 2 brothers, and 2 more eventually came, and a dad who was a firefighter, and a mother who was a stay-at-home mom. They were just like any other family. They went on family vacations, ate dinners together, laughed together, and did normal family things. But suddenly, the relationship between David and his mother changed. He was now the bad boy, and she started to hit him just because she was angry about something. She always took it out on David and somehow made it look like it was all David's fault, but really it had nothing to do with him. At first, his mother only abused David while his father was away at work. But eventually his father finds out how his mother is treating him and really does nothing about it. Sometimes he tries to help, but usually it just makes his mother angrier. And his mother didn't do this to David's brothers, only to David. One day when David got home from school, his mother was very mad. She turned on the stovetop burner as high as it would go so that the blue flame was blasting. She made David strip naked and took his bare arm and held it over the burner while David screamed and until he fell into the ground. She then told him to lie his entire body on the burner and burn. Luckily for David, his dad arrived home from work at just the right time. David was no longer a part of the family. He was his mother's slave. He did chore after chore and was timed while doing each chore. If it didn't get done in time, his mother would come up with some crazy way to abuse David. David's room was moved to the cold basement garage and he slept on a cot. He went to bed without dinner almost every night, and if David was lucky, he would get to eat his brother's leftover cereal for breakfast. His mother packed him a very small lunch for school, but not every day. There were many days that he went without a lunch. Since David was constantly hungry, he would steal from the other students' lunch pails. But eventually, the children started to notice, and the administration called David's mother, and she beat him. This never stopped him, though. He would run to the nearby grocery store, during recess and steal from there. Or on his way home from school or even to school, he would stop at the houses in the neighborhood and ask for food. But these ideas never worked for long. His mother always eventually found out. And the more she found out, the harder she treated him. The more she hit him, and the less he ate. Once David came home from school after stealing some food from the other students' lunch, and his mother made him vomit, so to prove that he did eat that day, she then proceeded to make him eat his own vomit. One day, David was allowed to go on a family vacation, but when his brothers and dad went off to go do something fun, David was to stay behind with his mother and his new baby brother. When he stayed behind, something made his mother very mad, and of course she blamed it all on David, even though he didn't do anything wrong. His punishment was to eat his baby brother's poopy diaper. When David refused, she shoved his face in the poop, and it got in David's mouth and nose, which left the smell of defecation in his nose for days. Due to the stealing and the smelly, dirty clothes David wore, he didn't have any friends at school. The other kids called him names and never played with him at recess. Although he had no friends, David looked forward to going to school every day because it got him away from his evil mother. Yes, the teachers wondered about David, the bruises on his body and the same smelly clothes every day, but they never did anything about it. Many of the cruel and unusual punishments David's mother came up with involved ammonia, a gas solution used as a cleaning supplies. It is very toxic and can cause major harm if inhaled or swallowed. Once she shoved a spoonful of ammonia in David's mouth. David swallowed it because there was nothing else he could do. She stood there and watched him suffer until he nearly blacked out. After the incident, Another incident was when his mother mixed ammonia with another cleaning supplies, which let off a strong fume and locked David in the bathroom with the mixture. He couldn't breathe. She left him in there until he basically died from inhaling the deadly gas. Sometimes when he got lucky, he wouldn't be with the ammonia in the bathroom. Instead, it was to lie in the bathtub in freezing cold water for hours at a time. Once his mother was very drunk and was holding up a knife threatening to kill David. At this time in his life, he felt like he should just die. It was like he was wishing for death and for his mother to just go ahead and kill him. But while holding the knife, she accidentally stabbed David. It was a deep wound, and he should have been rushed to the hospital, but instead his mother treated the wound, not for David's sake though, but for her own, as if to hide any evidence of abuse. A day later, David was right back to doing his chores with the time limit that was unreachable due to his injuries, and the beatings just kept coming. I really enjoyed reading this book, not because I enjoyed reading about the cruel things David was forced to go through, but because I knew it had a happy ending, because the first chapter told me so. It told me that he was going to make it out alive, and that he was going to get away from his mother and his nasty home life. And so while I was reading, I kept telling myself that there's going to be a happy ending, that he's going to make it through this. If the first chapter wasn't there at the beginning when I started to read, I probably wouldn't have been able to finish the book. But I did, and it was a really good book, and I really enjoyed reading it. There are so many children being abused right now in the United States, and I hope that one day child abuse can be stopped for good.